Ah, there we are. Got new link, but not getting anything. Okay.
Hi.
Oh, there you are. Very well, Bonnie. Yeah, thank goodness. 1 minute, not too bad, but technical difficulties. I think they make you add people a second time. So that is the trouble with some of this Google Hangouts. But nice to see you. Thank you, Bonnie.
Ah, good to see you too. Is Chip on the line with us?
He's working on it. I think he's supposed to be there. Now I cannot see you.
Right. I didn't think we were gonna do visual. Like what do you see? A picture of me?
No, I just see. I think it's your little camera. Okay, Chip joined. Yay! There's Chip. Excellent. So
Good.
we're not too far off. This will record at any rate. I'm also recording from my laptop, so that'll be fantastic. So I will share my screen.
All right, I'm here.
Just very
Hi,
good.
Chip.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
I'm glad we've got technology working on our side now. Yay. Spirit fingers. Yay.
Well, what I discovered is it makes you add people's names twice. That's why I was kind of trying to do the setup, a dry run. But at any rate, let's welcome our guests, and hello audience, and welcome to Office MVP's Lounge, where we can talk freely beyond the office chat. And our topic this evening is removing the elephant in the room. My name's Melissa Nourigat, and I am Office MVP's founder, as well as LinkedIn's Administrative Assistant Office Professionals group, where we host over 150,000 people to date. And I would like to introduce my guests today, who are Bonnie Low-Kramen, renowned speaker, author, and anti-workplace bullying advocate, and Chip Lutz, expert leadership training coach and author. And I'd like to have each of them introduce themselves. So if we can start with Bonnie. Bonnie, can you give us a little background on what you're doing and how this topic has played a part in your speaking and authoring?
Sure. Well, thank you, Melissa. It's great to be here and with you and Chip, and so many listeners. For me, for 25 years, I worked as the personal assistant to actress Olympia Dukakis, and I wrote the book Be the Ultimate Assistant. 3 years ago, I resigned from that job in order to design and teach workshops for assistants who are working at the very highest levels. And what I know for sure from all of this teaching and speaking with assistants from all over the world is that this workplace bullying issue is an epidemic in our workplace, not only in America, but all over the world. And I know this from literally talking and meeting with assistants and leaders all over. It's really important that we do something about it, and that is why I'm writing and speaking about it as often as I can, because what I'm seeing that there are so many talented assistants being stopped from doing really excellent work because of these inappropriate behaviors in the workplace. So that's my why about it all.
And Chip, can you introduce yourself?
Well, hello, Melissa, Bonnie. Awesome to be with you online today. Myself, I'm a retired naval officer. I had a lot of different jobs, but my roots are in administration. I started off in personnel and as a yeoman in the Navy, worked my way up, and as you and I were talking the other day, Melissa, within the Navy, we never really called people bullies. We just kind of, pardon the expression, we just called them, working for a jackass. So since then, I've been speaking on, and training and coaching people, in the leadership realm, helping people, lead better and get more done, and really empower people to, take their giftings and leverage them to get more done. And I know that in today's workforce and what's happened since 2008 with the economic downturn is that it really kind of gave a lot of leaders, I want to say, kind of like a free card to do what they wanted to do. Because people didn't really have a lot of other choice, jobs were scarce, you needed to keep your job, and so if people had a tendency to bully, they would bully. So I work with people and try to, help them get out of that realm and really empower people to do their best, use their best power base, not the coercive power base to make the workplace a little bit better where people can flourish instead of feel like every day is drudgery.
Very good, very good. And that's why I brought both of you in, because I think this is a really important topic. So my foreword is, today's workplace bullying is an epidemic gone unchecked far too long, and there are many laws in place for many other workplace risks and threat issues. Now finally, bullying's on the agenda at the top of everyone's mind. It's a really great thing. I've scheduled a webinar to facilitate the movement toward a safer workplace environments through open discussion, awareness, and training. And I'll also be posting a link at the end of the webinar to SurveyMonkey. If you'd please fill this out, I'd greatly appreciate it. It's just a couple of questions, relating to the workplace bullying topic. But today we're going to be discussing how we're going to remove the label and address the behavior that will shape the future of workplace environments, both from the solution-based perspective, which is Bonnie, and the leadership perspective, which is Chip. I believe after going through Chip's emerging leader training myself, that his empowerment message is fully what is needed to accelerate people's better behavior in the workplace, where they don't feel threatened, they don't feel insecure, because they're empowered and they have better tools and resources and a theory to operate from, rather than fear and intimidation. And so that's why I felt it was really important to bring you two together in today's open discussion. With that, let's go to slide 3. I got to get my pardon me here. And we're going to define bullying. And Bonnie, if you want to read the one I put in the PowerPoint presentation that you've designed.
Yeah, bullying is defined in many companies and with many organizations as the persistent, offensive, abusive, intimidating, or insulting behavior or unfair action directed at another individual, causing the recipient, and now we've got Chip on the screen, all right, causing the recipient to feel threatened, abused, humiliated, or vulnerable. These health-harming behaviors can include verbal, physical, or sexual abuse, and cause work interference and undermine the individual's rights to dignity at work.
Excellent. And Robert Fuller has analyzed bullying in the context of rankism, where and Wikipedia has defined bullying as the use of force, threat, or coercion to abuse, intimidate, or aggressively dominate others. The behavior is often repeated and habitual. The essential prerequisite is perception by the bully or others of an imbalance of social or physical power. Behaviors used to assert such domination can include verbal harassment or threat, physical assault or coercion, and such acts may be directed repeatedly towards particular targets. I say, bullies were likely bullies as children and brought the problem to work. And bullying affects all of us. We have 6 types of bullying, and if we've already discussed that, kind of laid that out in the definition, which is physical, verbal, indirect, social, intimidation, and cyberbullying. because I think cyberbullying happens in work as well. And the profile that Bonnie laid out here in slide 4 is with nastygram emails. When, favoritism.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Bonnie.
So, yeah, I think there are two things to note about the definition, if I could just back up a moment. And one of those things is that companies are struggling to come up with to articulate the exact language about what precisely bullying is, and that is what is stopping our legislators from creating any laws yet. As of this minute, in 2014, at the end of 2014, there are 0 laws against workplace bullying. And so there are different organizations that are coming up with language, but it really is about defining precisely about what it is. And on the slides, of course, named what bullying is, but one of the things that's missing from the definition is the fact that not only are there targets of bullying, but that the witnesses to bullying bear almost as much of the trauma as the target of bullying themselves. So it's two very big groups of people. It's not only the targets of bullying that are bearing the pain and suffering, etc., of the workplace bullying, but also the witnesses to bullying. So then, we get to these behaviors, the behaviors that can be overt, like yelling and screaming and throwing things, and then the more subtle forms of bullying, which can be those passive-aggressive behaviors such as those nastygram emails, where it's very easy to write out, I call them nastygrams, and then hit send, and not really take in what the reaction is to that kind of behavior. And what's stunning to me as I travel the world is to hear assistants in a conversation about workplace bullying and hear about the specific behaviors that are associated with it. And they say, oh, well, that's happening to me, but I never called it that. Just as Chip said, that it was people behaving badly. They never defined it like that. And why? Why is that? It's because of all the silence that has been cloaking these behaviors for too long, which is why, these webinars are so useful and that we're breaking that silence.
Well, I appreciate that, because I have been a victim myself, and I've seen it in the workplace, and it was very alarming. I hadn't experienced it before, and I was just kind of shocked. I was like, oh, really? And, but because I hadn't experienced before, I didn't have the skills to defend myself against it, or address it. And that's what, I'm hoping these webinars and alert, aligning people with resources that are dealing with that, because there are many out there right now, and I've seen them since 2000, I believe. They've been working on this bullying issue, and we'll get to that at the end with our resource links. And but Bonnie, can you give the audience some statistics on bullying behavior?
Yeah, and they're pretty alarming as well. That 7 out of 10 offices in the United States report workplace bullying, some form of it. That 50% of all workers have either experienced workplace bullying or witnessed workplace bullying. On the slide, you'll see that male bullies outnumber female bullies, and it won't be surprising that females are the primary targets of bullies, whether the bully themselves is female or male. And we're paying a very big price for these very high statistics. And as I've been in Europe and in Dubai and the Middle East, it is every bit as epidemic there as it is here. So, and I believe that it is in large part due to the lack of training. We're not there hasn't been enough conversation and discussion about what exactly this is. Just like it wasn't until 10 years ago that there were the first laws, actual laws against sexual harassment in the workplace. So that was just 10 years ago. And now there are no workplace bullying laws. We're working on them, but we need the conversation. We need laws, hopefully. But until there are laws, what's needed is substantive conversations about what do staffers do about it once they define it and identify that it's happening.
Well, and it's the person, don't you think, too, to be able to, as you pointed out, there are statements that you can make, that is inappropriate and unprofessional behavior. There was a Pulse article recently, about a month ago, I think, that talked about this that you had pointed out, as well as not just the administrators or managers dealing with it, but the people personally themselves, taking charge and taking control of their lives to divert any, and I love the word, you said, the incivility in the workplace, and that is what it really boils down to, is that there's become an epidemic of incivility in the workplace. Since when did we ever, delete somebody's entire meeting series off the calendar because some altercation, right, of another person? And that's just an example of it coming from an admin perspective, as well as many others. But we'll keep moving, because I know we don't have very much time, and we can hopefully get to some topics at the end if you want to bring back some of the comments.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. And so we've gone over the statistics, and then let's look at the victim target, a portfolio. Or did I go too fast? Hang on a minute. Nope, that's next. Yeah, the portfolio of the, as I call it, the CV, circa vitae, I know, of the person who, gets targeted. And I found some statistics out there, from the workplace bullying site, and basically it's a compassionate, kind, cooperative, agreeable person who tends to be the target.
And that identifies in the land of professional assistants, 95 to 98% of them are women. I mean, it's not to say that men are not compassionate, kind, cooperative, agreeable, aggressive, and abusive. Oh, right. I see those statistics. But what I'm seeing is that the majority are women who are the targets. Right.
And this again, I don't think the site was defining a gender. They were just, looking at the personality types. Yeah. And so, that could be very, of course, a larger amount of women, very agreeable, cooperative. And so let's look at a quick sketch on the bully. What kind of behaviors do these bully women, we'll start with women. And I've got this slide up. Bonnie, if you want to go ahead and put some highlights on these points. And
female bullying. The good news is that more and more women are reaching management positions in the world, but it's going to take a while till it balances out. What is needed is education and training among managers to understand how to lead. And Chip and I, when we were talking, how in the military there is a great emphasis on training, and in the workplace there is not enough training happening for either women or male managers, and that begins in college, where that training is not happening. So when these women are reaching leadership positions, they are modeling perhaps some leaders who they've experienced, and they are leading by intimidation and trying to emulate men, seemingly successful men. But the fact is that leading by intimidation and abusive behaviors is not an effective long-term strategy.
Exactly. And we could go for, I'll do the, non-management levels, which is, peer abuse, they're catty, gossip, rumors, teasing, taunting. I don't know that management would do that. I think they would be more intimidating and demanding than the, general employee, right, where this kind of behavior, teasing, belittling, humiliation, betrayal, sabotage. And Peggy Kloss of the coach at Berkeley, California, has called it the pink elephant in the room for women. And so, excluding people, passive-aggressive behaviors, we talked about that, withdrawing assistance, and ignoring people, and that is very hurtful. Those behaviors are just so childish, and playground requisites. At any rate, we'll move to the male, and the bully in a quick sketch of male types of behaviors. And Chip, if you want to read those off from the slide, that'd be great, and then we'll get to slide 6, or question 6.
Well, I really think it would have been more fair if I had read the female and then Bonnie had read the male. See, you're just stereotyping now, Melissa.
Oh. My apologies.
Anyway, no, I'm just
giving me a hard time.
Before we get into this, I think Bonnie brought up a couple of really good points on the previous slide, in that there isn't really enough training that goes on for people on how to lead and how to effectively empower their people and to effectively motivate their people. Most of the time, whether it starts in college, which is good, because a lot of times in college, they just cover theory, and theory is great, but we all know that it's application to what works. That there's no such thing as a natural-born leader. That leadership is a deliberative process. It takes time and effort on a leader's part to sit back and reflect on what's going on in their workplace and how do they best match what's going on to the individual, because that's it. There's no secret to leading people. Leading is all about people, and you have to know your people. And that goes on getting out and about and talking to your people. But most of the time, like Bonnie said, we do a very poor job of equipping people with the tools they need in order to effectively motivate people. So what do? Going back to at very beginning, which I really liked, the definition that Bonnie had given on bullying, that we're really talking about different power bases, using this coercive power. And so usually people will fall back to what they know and how they were trained and they were growing up. So even if the person is a caring and kind an admin person, a lot of times, what do they know? What did they, what did that person grow up with? Well, they grew up in this. Well, this is how a leader is supposed to be. So this is what they fall back on. So we do a pretty good job of promoting people to where they need to be. However, we do a very poor job of equipping them to effectively motivate and manage people without breaking their spirit. So that being said, I think that the difference between men and women, how they bully, the difference is, I think I don't want to get too gender biased on this, because I think that it can go either way. I think that looking at I think men can be catty, men can gossip, just like I think that women can be aggressive. I don't think that there's as much of a stereotype on bullying as much as it goes with just people's overall personality. I think if people have an aggressive personality, they will be a little more aggressive, and if they have a tendency to bully, like you said at the very beginning, regardless of gender, they grew up and they were a little bit of a bully, and they have an opportunity to do it as an adult. A lot of times, without the proper training and education, they'll go into what they know and do the exact same thing. However, men do tend to be a tad bit more, aggressive in the workplace, probably a little more direct, probably a little more insensitive to people's feelings, and a little less empathetic on how things, would normally. How they really should work. So I'll get off my soapbox on that. It just that I think that regardless of gender, if people have a tendency to bully, I think that they will.
Well, and I think that you answered a couple of the questions. So one of the several questions that I have for you, Chip, we'll start out with you, was, you know, as a group commander and a teaching instructor, what is your experience in observing the traits of those who have been bullied, which I think you just gave us. And then how did you coach these people to develop themselves, and what were the results or outcomes?
Well, like with any contentious situation, I always think it's best to try to really understand what's going on. A lot of times, like I said, and Bonnie alluded to, that people are just ill-equipped to be in the position that they're in. And so a lot of it comes down to is, you know, reaching out to that person, you know, and not, you know, trying to understand where they're coming from and the behavior that they're exhibiting in the way that they're bullying people, and then trying to get them to understand, you know, what are the different ways that they can do this versus going to the coercive power bases. I mean, something that we've talked about before and we cover in our 8-week, you know, series is, you know, looking at different power bases. You know, power and politics get a really bad rap, you know, within the workplace. However, they're necessities in order to get things done. A lot of times, you know, people, they will fall back on, you know, this is the way, this is the, you know, the coercive power bases, how things need to go. But there are a lot of other different power bases, you know, people can use in order to get things done. Whether, if they're likable, they can use a referent power base. They can try to build that. And, you know, if they're you know, smart or they know a lot, they can use, you know, the you know, an expert power base or a knowledge power base. You know, how do you know, complement those different things versus going just solely on, you know, do this or you're going to lose your job, or do this or this is going to be the result, which it isn't conducive to a good workplace. So for me in coaching people, you know, we try to look at, you know, what they know, where they're coming from, and how do they best match their leadership style to what's going on in that workplace. I mean, and there's no one cookie cutter, because, you know, as different as any workplace is the different, because it's all based on, you know, where you're at and the situation, you know, your skills and abilities, the person's skills and abilities. You know, how do you marry those, you know, those things up to truly understand where people are coming from, so you can best match their giftings to what they're needing to get done. You know, because in the end, we're all in the business of getting things done, meeting mission, right? I mean, that's, you know, in the end, that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to get something done, you know, and we have a whole plate of different things that we can do. However, a lot of times people will just fall back to how they grew up and, you know, how they were treated versus sitting back and reflecting on, you know, what's the best way.
So basically, you believe that a bully can be coached, they're coachable, and that your approach would be through extra, you know, with this kind of training. And so I think that's really great. Now, if you saw a bully situation, how would you approach it? And what would be the consequences?
Oh, I'd go direct. But for the person?
Yeah.
The person that was bullying?
Yes.
Well, again, it would depend on what the situation was. If, say, like, I've had 2 command tours in the Navy, and I had a few people that worked for me that were a tad too aggressive in how they dealt with different people. So I had a little one-on-one with those people on the best way to treat people. And that I would give, just like anything, you give people a course of action. This is the course of action that you need to take, and if it doesn't happen, then these are things that, you know, we're going to do to try to rectify the situation. Opposed to, each situation was a little bit different, so I can't tell you exactly what the ramifications were. However, we never had a second issue once they were, how can we put, kind of like recalibrated on the proper care and etiquette, care and feeding of their people. Yeah. So for me, you know, I think it's a sad day when we have to, as leaders, tell our other leaders how to treat their people. In the end, I think that we all want to be treated as human beings. We all want to know that what we do at work is valued, that we provide some kind of value to the end result, not just from on a very basic human level. We want to know that we matter. And when, you know, people are out there barking orders and bullying, you know, we negate that human value for people, and it crushes people's spirits. and that's no way to create a workplace where people really flourish. So it really comes down to, if it, and Bonnie and I talked about this last week, is that I really think everybody's a leader. I don't think you need a title, you don't need a parking place, you don't. It comes down to, in our own ways, we can lead. If we see somebody in our workplace that, even when in my peer group, if I saw somebody that was being bullied, I was there for that person to try to help them, get through it. I was there to help them lead themselves through it, be an ear for them, to give them some, how should I say, some ways to handle the situation without cutting their legs off. We can all lead from the front, given the means and the opportunity. And we talked about that a little bit last week.
Excellent.
Bonnie and I did, anyway.
Well, and Bonnie, as a speaker and trainer who's spoken to thousands of professionals, I pose the same question to you. What is your, you've spoken a little bit, what's your experience observing the traits of those who've been bullied?
Right. There's, it's becoming clearer and clearer the more assistants I speak with. Old habits die hard. I mean, I guess, Chip, you and I are going to have to agree to disagree on this one point, in that women as a group, we're socialized as young girls to compete with one another, to not be collaborative, to consider one another as adversaries, if you will, and to seek the approval of men. And that early socialization is very tough to break as women get older and get into the workplace and are functioning with other women. And of course, that's a big part of the messages that I share in these rooms of women about the importance of mentoring one another and collaboration, which goes right up against the socialization that they had for years and years. So how it's manifesting itself in the workplace is that when bullying is occurring, that they feel very isolated and alone, and that there's too much silence. They are living on a daily basis with too much fear and suffering in silence. There's too much complicit silence. They'll say our leaders are the bullies, and/or our leaders are oblivious and clueless to what is going on in their companies. And so my strategy with them is I've adopted this new mantra, which is that we must speak up. We must speak truth to power. Chip, you said you would go right, you would be direct, you would go for it. And in practice, what's happening in the workplace is that these women primarily are saying, I can't speak up, Bonnie. I can't. I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid for my job, which, you validated that point. Mm-hmm. And what I say back is that if you don't speak up, if you continually stay silent, you're going to lose you. That the trauma of workplace bullying is not just lasting on the day it happens, or the week it happens, or the month it happens. The trauma and pain of it, depending on the level of it, can last for years. That we've had students in our workshops kind of relive it in the room with us, and they could tell you what time of day it happened, what they were wearing, what the date was, and I myself can relay or remember certain stories that is the case. So if I ask a room full of 200 assistants, how many of you feel well managed? It is shocking how few will raise their hands. And if I say, how many of you have either experienced or witnessed workplace bullying, the majority of them will raise their hands. And what I'm saying to you and to anybody listening is that those two ideas are connected, that our leaders sometimes simply are not being told what the issue is. And if any research on workplace bullying will say that the step one to solving this problem is awareness. And the only way to make people aware of what the issues are is if we tell them.
Well, in legislation.
Well,
We have to hold them to the toe.
Yeah.
And I hate to interrupt because I saw an entire group of women, and they were all behind it. I mean, I saw the manager looking down the hallway at it. I'm like, oh my word, I think they know exactly what's going down, and they're just a part of it. But and when you get in that kind of situation, to me, it's going to be the legislation, just like sexual harassment. But I want you to finish. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought. I appreciate it.
I believe that legislation will be a piece of this puzzle, but mainly what has to happen, the most successful companies in our country are the ones that have built cultures of respect. And the way you understand if a company like Google, like Zappos, like Virgin Atlantic Airlines, those companies, you look on the website and look at how they speak about the value of their people. That Chip is absolutely right. What people want most is respect and acknowledgement and appreciation and an understanding of their value in the company. The other way you can tell if a company is doing things well is just take a look at their employee retention rates. If you see a revolving door of staff, leaders must be told why. And the best leaders are the ones who are asking why. But if they're not being trained in college to even ask these questions. So if they happen to be trained themselves by someone who's a talented leader, we're leaving it too much to luck in our country and in the world. It shouldn't be left up to luck whether someone is led by a talented leader or not. So what I'm encouraging assistants to do the world over is if it's true that they're not being managed well, then they have to manage their managers, that they need to use their intelligence and understand what they know is a lot, and that they can use they can exert their own a form of their power to lead, to take the lead in their support position. Most assistants don't view themselves as leaders, but they are. I completely agree with Chip on that point. But that they need to be, it needs to be illustrated, and to have a conversation about, well, exactly how does that look? What does that look like in the workplace? Well, if an assistant is the one who has the answers to who's the contact there, where's the file, who's got the key, how do we manage that event, they're leading. And when they see their departments that are being run poorly, or that managers are not necessarily managing well, they can help their managers be better ones by giving them a heads up about someone who's unhappy or a situation that they know is brewing. Frankly, there just needs to be a whole lot more conversation going on in our workplace. Our middle managers are not talking to our leaders about what's really going on, and our assistants are not talking to their managers. They're bickering among each other, and what that's causing is a lot of distraction, a lot of wasted time, and from a company's point of view, a lot of wasted money. So I see it as a lose-lose-lose situation that must be addressed. And the only way it's, I mean, Melissa, you're saying that some leaders take a blind eye to this, that they shove the problem under the rug, and indeed they do. And what I say to that is, they have probably not been trained how to deal with it. So we're suffering from a severe lack of training in the workplace, training for our leaders and training for our staffers about how to positively confront issues when they happen. Because isn't it true? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when these issues are going to arise between people in the workplace.
Well, so, what happens too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say is that the bad guy, the good guy, bad guy routine. That's what I see as the bullying, because the guy who's getting bullied is the bad guy, and the good guy is the bullier, and so they're kept, and the other person's let go, and that's the this tug of war of recognizing who's really the bad guy. Because the target isn't the problem, but they make it look like you're the problem, And I think, again, you guys have really nailed that, I think, really well, and I appreciate that. This is going to be great on tape when people come back and listen to it, and we could get into the next slide. But go ahead, Chip, interject.
I think Bonnie made a couple of really good points there. In that, I think that it is very sad that some leaders don't know what's going on, and that's what I coach leaders to do, is to know what's going on. I know that we all lead busy lives, especially when we're in a leadership position. We have this going on, we have that going on, but I encourage everybody that I coach to make time every day for their people. I mean, if you have to tell your people you have an open door policy, you don't really have an open door policy, because you shouldn't have to tell them. You should just be approachable, because how you carry yourself and how you act and interact with the people around you. I know that sometimes I live in a rose-colored world where I like to think that we've come into a renaissance in leadership, where with all the books written by Maxwell and Covey, and that certainly people know that there's a right way and a wrong way to lead, and the right way is to get out there and about and to know your people. It's just, to me, it's very sad that people don't know what's going on, and they're completely oblivious, and they're like, well, this is a problem? I didn't know this was a problem. Well, that's because you weren't engaged yourself. Right. And that, I think that another point that Bonnie made that I think is very important, that any of your Fortune 100 companies, take it seriously. They know that a positive workplace starts with engaged leaders. And and in college, having college classes is great, but it's the organization's responsibility to ensure that their organization has the right kind of culture. And whether they have training or mentorship programs or coaching programs, whatever it is, that organization needs to take responsibility. Top leadership needs to take responsibility to create that kind of culture. Right. And so I just want to emphasize that I think that Bonnie made a couple of really good points, and one that was kind of sad in a way, that leaders, when she goes out and asks people how many feel well managed, and and few people raise their hand, how sad an experience that is for people, and how sad it must be for you as the speaker, Bonnie, to see so few hands raised, when people say, do you feel well managed, because I can't think of a worse existence than to be stuck in a place where I don't feel like I can get out, and nobody understands.
Right, and these staffers feel impotent to do anything about it, because their leaders are the leader, and there's this idea in their head, well, if they're the leader, then you cannot speak up, you cannot talk back. And the idea I share with them is that it is true. I will ask, is it true that people will say things to you as the assistant that they would never say to your boss, that they would never say to the manager? And there's a whole room full of nodding heads. Right, Melissa? Are you nodding your head? And, they would say things to you. Well, let me just finish this point.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, please.
If it's true that assistants know things that they hear things that their managers don't, then that automatically means that they know things that their manager does not. Mm-hmm. And so they often know better than their managers about many things, not just some things. And so in 2014 going into 2015, we have to move away from the hierarchy, and the smartest managers I've encountered are ones who handle their staff as partners and as collaborators. And they still are managers, but they're seen as a team, and that's where the military gets it so right, I think, and that mentality. And see, it's traditionally, again, the military is mostly men, and it's we're in this together, let's watch each other's backs. and that is a mentality. Let's do it for the team.
Mm-hmm.
That is a mentality that really is traditionally male, and that women take to it like ducks to water, if you will. I mean, I love getting in rooms with women and say, how many of you believe in collaboration, and how many of you believe that women need to help other women and to support one another? And the hands will go flying up because they so want it to be different. The behaviors you described earlier, Melissa, it's like high school. It's so juvenile, and it's so negative and counterproductive. And professional people, men and women, who seek to be professionals in this workplace, they want to make a living, and during the time that they're working, however many hours a day they're doing it, they want to do it with people who they respect and who respect them. It is really quite simple in that way, but somehow, even though all those books have been written by Maxwell, etc., that message is not getting through, and it has to. I see the wake of pain and suffering is too huge.
Well, let's look at the cost of bullying in our next slide then, which I have up, because that leads right into what you're talking about, the cost and the price we're paying. And Bonnie, go ahead, and I think you gave this list to me, so I'll let you.
I did.
Yep.
I did. When people are bullied, we pay a price physically. Some choose to overeat or smoke too much or drink too much or take drugs. I've spoken face to face with assistants who numerous ones, not just one or two, who have been in the hospital from nervous breakdowns and are on antidepressant medications. Now, what I ask assistants in the room, ask these audiences, when you feel like this, when you're doing, eating too much and smoking too much, etc., and when you feel depressed and angry and distracted, is it possible to do excellent work when you're feeling like this? And of course the answer is a resounding no way. So that's the reason why we have to take action. I mean, these women, these men, they get it. They get it. When it's put in those terms, it's unacceptable to be paying this price. And companies are paying millions of dollars to replace the revolving door of staff, because these people who are being bullied are actively looking for new jobs when they're on the job, and they're running out the door. And when they leave, they may even have an exit interview. And at their exit interview, they're not telling the truth about why they're leaving. Leaders are not making it safe to say the truth about what's really going on in these companies. And that's why, I feel it's so important for me to speak out on these issues, because these assistants are being honest with me. And I see it. You cannot make this stuff up. And if you're on any of the 100 LinkedIn groups, of which, Melissa, you run the largest one of all, the
Amazing.
the threads about this topic, I would venture to say, is one of the hottest buttons around, and that assistants feel safe to reveal the truth in these LinkedIn forums, but they do not feel safe in the workplace. And our leaders, shame on them for not making it safe. Assistants do not feel that human resource departments are in their corner. They do not feel that it is a place to go in general. I mean, certainly there are some very fine human resources departments, but in general, staff does not feel that human resources is a place to go when they're needing relief from a problem with a bully.
Well, and the cost of bullying, these related, illnesses that stress everything, are actually part of the post-traumatic stress disorder, because what happens in bullying psychologically, and physiologically, is this reaction to a threat. and it's a stress it's a stress reaction, which is also an emotional dysregulation. Because you're not really physically being threatened. I mean, you are in some cases, but the bullying itself is all about intimidation, right? The psychological,
right,
degree.
And to stay, and the targets of bullying,
sustain.
excuse me for interrupting.
No, please.
They're isolated. They're choosing to stay isolated in the problem because it feels too dangerous to share the problem with others. And one of my favorite resources, which you know about, is the book called Taming the Abrasive Manager. And in the book, it's one of the key strategies to dealing with bullies is that chances are, if person A is being bullied, chances are there are several others who are being bullied as well. And target A needs to take the risk to speak to the other staffers and ask the question, are you being bullied also? Is this behavior something that's being repeated? Because there is real power in a group. There's power in saying, even talking about a hostile work environment, that lawyers will say that even the threat of a lawsuit could, it's a negative way to affect some change, but there are many strategies here to deal with the pain and suffering that is being wrecked by workplace bullying.
Well, and the Workplace Bullying Institute says it's 37% of workers have been bullied. Yet, yeah, like you're talking about, employers ignore the problem. It hits the bottom line. And I put a link up there to an article from New York Times in 2009. And up to, with women, and one of the basketball coaches, and their players and the effect it had on their players. So we've seen this for a long time now, and the next slide here is what you can do. And bullying is not yet illegal, as we've pointed out. The legislation's trying to get in place. The Healthy Workplace Bill is a place of legislation and advocacy that you can go to. It has U.S. and abroad. And I understand that the U.K. is way better equipped, and we are the last nations to address bullying in the workplace, which I thought was very fascinating. But Healthy Workplace Bill is a place to get involved. And so this is a hyperlink on the PowerPoint slides that I will post to this webinar link in our event here today. And let's see, what else do I have? Because we have 8 minutes, and we've talked about your personal experiences, I think, Bonnie and Chip, and your expert advice dealing with abusive behaviors. But Bonnie, can you give us a couple more really, good pointers about verbal skills? What statements, sentences could you use to stop bully right now today?
Right. It's critical to get classic bully behavior is that once you confront a bully, they back down and they typically move on to somebody else. So it's very important if in the moment to get someone alone, the bully alone, and to look them straight in the face and be calm and direct and say, you cannot speak to me like that. We are colleagues, we are professionals, and we must talk to each other with respect. And then stop talking. Chances are the bully will be completely, perhaps be shocked, and perhaps just simply apologize and walk away. I can tell you that in our workshops, the good news is that the success stories are numerous, that when assistants hit the wall and they decide that it's their time to speak up, that they've taken it for long enough and that they are going to confront the bully. One of our students told the story of her CEO boss in every Monday at a staff meeting in front of 12 or so people. The boss always humiliated her and called her stupid and was, really quite demeaning. And she took it for 2 years. And on one particular Monday, she decided that she'd had enough. When her boss did the typical Monday morning thing, the assistant named Melinda simply stood up from her chair at the conference room and walked out of the room. And the boss was surprised and walked out after her and said, "Melinda, what's going on? Why did you leave?" And she looked her boss right in the eyes and said, "You cannot do that to me anymore. You cannot humiliate me in front of the staff like that anymore." And the boss was very surprised and said, "Okay, can you come back into the meeting?" And Melinda gave her a look like that not happening. And she did go back into the meeting, and then later that day, the rest of the meeting went all right. And then later that day, they got in a room alone together, and Melinda, for the first time in 2 years, had the chance to tell her boss how it made her feel to have that this Monday she said this, and that last Monday, it's about being specific, absolutely detailed and specific. Last Monday it was this, the Monday before that it was this other thing. And her manager sat there and looked at her and said, "I had no idea." That's what she said. "I had no idea that you felt like that." And some assistants, when they hear that story, they'll say, "That's impossible. Of course the manager had some idea. What is she, crazy?" And the fact is that some managers are truly, truly oblivious, clueless, and from then on, now she was not clueless anymore, because Melinda finally, after 2 years, broke the silence and told her the truth, and things became better. Was it all the way better? No. But these stories are coming in one right after another, where assistants, when they feel that it is vitally important to say the truth, to speak up about what the specific behavior is that's causing the problem, change happens. Change happens.
And Chip, you've got 2 minutes, and then we've got to close. So, do you have any thoughts on, what your experiences were, and adjacent to the examples that you've given us?
I think that I think that the important thing for us to remember is to keep stock of where our roots are. In that, and I tell this to people all the time, that our job is to make it better when we're in that position. So not to fall back on what we know or how we were treated just because it was a rite of passage, but to really make a difference for those that we've been given the privilege of leading. So as we grow, we mature, and we move up the ladder, our job then is to make it better for those other people, so they don't have to endure the things that we've endured.
Excellent. Well, and my final thoughts, excuse me, are we've got some links again. I got a slide about what about the outside of the United States you can read on your own. And then there's resource links there, workplacebullying.org, bullyingstatistics.org, stopbullying.gov, SlideShare from Bonnie, of course, the elephant in the room workplace, Amazon, the Taming the Abrasive Manager, and the women'scenter.org. New York Times article, thing that you can go and research yourself. And then I have my credits page, of course, where you can find Chip's Unconventional Leader, to his blog and his writing, and to also as well as Bonnie's blog and her website, Be the Ultimate Assistant. And then Emerging Leader Academy is coming up for 2015 session starting January 14th, which is mine and Chip's partnering on this very topic and how to empower people to empower their employees instead of bullying. And again, it's a fascinating training session, and I hope you'll join and feel that you can give yourself a gift for the new year by joining our academy. It's 8 weeks. It's an hour a week, not much time, and then we have replay recordings and things along with slides, PowerPoint presentation that you can review. With that, I would like to ask about, ask your feedback about the session and any future topics you would like to cover, and you can email officemvps@gmail.com for that information, and give us your feedback about how you thought the webinar went. We'd like to give more if you're interested. As Bonnie has been talking about, she's giving workshops on this very topic in her Be the Ultimate Assistant training. So my closing thought is, what I find interesting is that in business, employees are instructed and trained to report all matters pertaining to security risks. Isn't a bully a security risk? Are managers and those around the bully in violation of mandatory reporting of threats? Those are my thoughts. And I definitely would like to thank Chip and Bonnie for this most excellent contribution, and really appreciate your time today and your consideration of bringing in your expertise to this very important topic.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. It was fun. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, we're going to close our session, and we bid you all a very good evening. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year if we don't talk to you, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks so much, Melissa.
Okay. All right, good night then.